Hey, welcome to Faith and Flavor. I hope that you're having a great day, night, evening, whatever time you're watching this podcast. And we hope that you are walking in purpose and in calling. I think a lot of us don't realize that we have callings that says many are called, but few are chosen. You know, we can pull up a lot of scriptures about purpose. And so that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today. But I'm going to start with this here a little bit, and then we're going to kind of talk as we go because this one takes a few minutes. But these are called energy bites, right? And I'm like, measure with your heart. Right?
Well, when it comes to peanut butter, I mean, since our hearts are so big, measure big, right?
Measure with your heart. So sometimes my heart's bigger than what it should be. I don't know. But I like peanut butter, so... but we're going to hopefully get into this peanut butter. I meant to have this done before, but you know, best laid plans of mice and men, right? But I make these a lot because they are a really good, somewhat healthier go-to snack, right? And so maybe the only thing that makes it not really healthy are probably the little mini chocolate chips that I put in there. And I actually do use mini chocolate chips because I do think it makes the flavor better. Right. I don't like to get one of the really big chocolate chips. But I also a lot of times will use coconut. And I put the coconut in first because I'm going to put the peanut butter in as well. And I don't want yeah, that looks good, huh? I don't want my peanut butter sticking to the bottom of the bowl. So I put my
that makes sense.
Peanut butter in and my honey in last. And then I just use, honestly, I go to one of our little local dollar stores and I get the little, it used to be way cheaper and now things are ridiculous.
I know. But see, it's so funny because I watch Lisa do this and I even measure out my cereal in the morning. I like say, okay, it says a quarter cup. So this is just too funny. Well, a little bit here, a little bit here.
Yeah, I don't really do, like, sometimes I do measure things out, but I don't know, you know. And like I'll just throw in maybe like a cup.
Could you say like the ratio is the same to each one, kind of, you know, maybe a little bit more oats, but from the
maybe
other?
A little more oats. I would say if you were measuring, I would measure about 2 cups of oats, 1 cup of peanut butter, about a half a cup to a cup of coconut, depending on how much you want in there. I probably could have just used the whole bag, and really when you're measuring peanut butter, to me, it makes no sense because, well, it's going to get all stuck in the thing and I just don't, I don't know. True. I don't like putting it in a cup and measuring it. I just like kind of eyeball
you're right.
it.
It does get stuck.
You know, that looks like about a cup to me, but I don't think you can ever really have too much peanut butter.
I'm thinking that's way more than a cup, but that's okay.
Let's say a cup and a half. And then I like to add honey. I like a natural local honey, as close as local as we can get it. And this one has the honeycomb, so we're going to hope it pours real well.
I've never seen that before.
Oh, you've never seen honeycomb?
No.
Oh, my goodness. That's so good to like chew on.
Can you tell I'm not from the country originally? I see the stands everywhere, but I've never stopped.
And I don't know. I would say that maybe that's like, I think by the time I'm done, I'll get like a fourth of a cup or something, you know?
Okay, for us, me, that's not as educated. What is the honeycomb in there?
Well, honeycomb is just good for you, but it's also fun to chew on. So
seriously?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Oh.
As
they say, you learn something new every day because I've never.
Before we leave and let you chew. Wow. It's really, a lot of people like it. I'm sure it has a lot of really good health benefits too, you know, I would assume. But I'm going to try to do this. We're on camera. I did wash my hands before, but I'm going to try to stir this with the spoon. But quite honestly, I'm going to have my hands making little balls out of it anyways. So eventually I'm going to have to use my hands, but we'll do it this way and see how it comes out.
You'll get a kick out of this. So I was watching a show and the guy was trying to buy a house and he said he wanted to know if they allowed him to have bees in the backyard. I'm just like, why does anybody want bees in the backyard? And my husband goes, for honey, honey. I was like, well, I understood that, but I mean, I would just go to the store and buy some.
No, well, it's different when you get local honey, right? So local honey, it has like they gather their honey, right? Their pollen from the local flowers. And so people who have allergies and that kind of thing
Uh-huh.
to the local pollens that are in the area, they're when they do the local honey, it's kind of like putting a little bit of an immunization in because you're getting used to it a little bit at a time.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes
And
sense.
so it helps your allergies and stuff. So now here's the part where we just get a little messy. So I'm trying to be all politically correct on camera, but you guys already know me, so it's probably not.
Well, see, I'm thinking of you more because since you just did my beautiful nails, I'm going to let you get your hands dirty, not me.
And I did take my rings off, and I prepared, but I may add a little more oats. It depends on how it feels when I actually get my hands in there. But you want it to be kind of where you can still make a ball, but you don't want it to be like really wet. And so this is a little more
better,
wet.
Right?
Correct.
Okay.
This is a little more wet than I want because I
Okay.
don't want to like grab a spoon of peanut butter, which is not bad, by the way. But I just like it a little bit where I can form a little ball.
So you try to.
And then when you I just make like an average size ball. Sometimes I'm a little bit very specific. So like when I make like sausage balls and peanut butter balls, like not these, but like chocolate dip, I literally measure out on my little gram
Okay.
scale.
Oh, okay.
My
So we're trying to
meat
get all
scale.
this in there, right?
Yes.
So you might have to use your hands, huh?
Yep. So I'm gonna start just doing it
Okay.
this way now because I feel like it would be advantageous. But I do like them to come out kind of uniform, so I kind of measure out like my sausage balls and all that.
Well, yeah, I was saying because you could use a little measuring round. You can tell how much I'm in the kitchen, but actually, like the measuring spoons.
Right.
That
The
one that's
little
got
cookie
like
ball.
yeah,
Cookie,
okay.
Scoop. That's what I do. I use the cookie scoop, but I also take it out and lay each one on the scale and weigh because I have so many grams. I don't like them to be uniform. I don't like them to be uniform for a couple of reasons. Number one, when I'm cooking, I want them to cook even. So, but anyhow, this is basically all that we do. And then once we get them like that, we put them in the refrigerator and they cool off and they stay pretty firm at that point. And so
I guess you could do anything. Well, let's say you don't like the semi-chocolates. Could you use some like maybe raisins or?
you could. I started to put raisins in here today, but I didn't because a lot of people are kind of funky about raisins.
Okay.
But you could. Raisins aren't my favorite, but I could. But I also think it would be good with cranberries.
Oh yes.
Because
yes,
you got that
would be-
little
absolutely.
You got that little tart to it. But anyhow, all of these things here are individual, right? They're all individual ingredients, but when they come together, you make something very yummy.
Yes.
They all have a purpose. And so I guess today when we're talking, I've got my notes over here, but I'm going to try to go by memory.
Go peek behind you here.
Yeah.
So there you go.
But we know that we all have a calling and we all have a purpose, right? Of sorts, right? Your calling could be ministry. Your calling could be to help homeless people. That's a ministry. I think, in my opinion, let's go there, that you can have a calling outside of what most people would consider traditional Christianity.
Right. And it's interesting too is it says in the Bible, of course, that God gave us each a gift, and it used to bother me that I won't say that I can't cook. I choose not to, but it used to bother me that I didn't know how to do what I guess people call the norm. But then He gave us each a gift, and if we were all the same, then there's a lot of areas that wouldn't be taken care of.
Right. That's right. Well, you can't have 19 billion cooks in the whole wide world and nobody to, maybe go out and feed the homeless with it,
Right.
Or feed their families with it, I just think that a lot of people and I'm making these a little bigger for number one. Who doesn't like more peanut butter? But I'm making them a little bigger just for the sake of broadcast. But
I knew there was a reason I didn't eat before I came today.
These are so good. But if we, and you want to use instant, like the instant oats, like this here is not instant, and I like them okay. You know, like this is what I made them with. But a lot of people do use like I should say, the steel cut oats is not necessarily instant, but the steel cut oats is what they say to use. I don't
Okay.
know what the difference is really.
Thank you. I was going to say I had no idea what the difference is, but
But anyhow, I think a lot of us tend to put, well, I got to do this for the church. I got to do this, you know, and they put like a Christian God assignment on it, right? Well, a commandment was to love thy neighbor as thyself and the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and all these hang all the laws, right? So is loving your neighbor, loving the homeless, loving the addict, all of that, is that a God mandate? Yeah, sure.
absolutely.
You know, but I don't think people would look at it as ministry. Well, I think it's just as much ministry as it is inside the church. You can sing, you can play the piano, you can minister, you can teach youth, you can do all that. But I think that, like you work with the elderly a lot, I think that's just as much of a calling as it is if it was coming from inside the church, doing it from a church mandate
Right.
standpoint.
And you know, what's interesting too is I think people have a tendency to, if they don't see that you're actually doing something that the church is involved in, they don't realize that you're doing other stuff, or they think that you're, you know, that you're not doing, like you said, your calling. And it's just all different avenues and different areas that God calls you to. And, you know, he gives you a purpose and he just asks you to be obedient. And that's one thing I had to realize is, you know, I had somebody say to me one time, remember it's 90% showing up to what you're called, and 10% is because you're going to make a difference regardless. And it may not be like, there's sometimes I go and my hospice patients are, you know, it's just one of those days where they're sleeping. But if I'm sitting there making sure they're comfortable and that they're taken care of, so the people actually working in the facility can go and do something else, it's still a ministry.
That's right.
You know, it's just that we have to remember that we're doing it for God and not for the accolades of the people.
And I think a lot of times people look at the works, right? The works that we do. Well, even the Bible says it's not by works, lest any man should boast. He doesn't call us because we work hard. We work hard because he called us.
Yes.
You know, and in 2 Timothy 1:9, it says, who has saved us and called us with an holy calling, not according to our works, but according to his purpose and grace, which was given in Christ Jesus before the world began. So, I mean, yes, we learn things. Yes, we work hard. Yes, we try to be good, you know. And I think people want to be viewed as, man, she did that really well,
Right.
or he did that really well. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. It's just a matter of
I'm going to turn this just so we can hear you, sweetie, just in
Okay.
case. Okay.
I think a lot of it is just a matter of just knowing where we're comfortable in the calling that he brings us into. And a lot of us want to work to be the best at what, and that's okay. I'm not
Right,
saying
right.
I work hard to do well and to be perceived well, right? You know, when I do like ladies things, I mean, I try to go above and beyond because it's who I am. But it's not who I am necessarily in how well I do it. It's who I am because he called me to do
Right.
things with excellence, right? I believe that God calls us to do things with excellence, but we can get caught up in it
Right.
and forget the purpose.
Right. And, you know, and thing too, it's not like I say, when I do something, whether it's for the elderly or it's for, you know, editing the podcast or whatever, I want to do it with my whole heart, and I don't want to take the easy way out. But so it's not really pride. Don't mistake it for that, but to be proud of what you're doing.
Right.
You know, whether, you know, it's ultimately for God, for the kingdom, but it's also, you know, because he, like you said, he made us to want to strive in the right way, I guess would be, you know, how to say it, and not a prideful fact, but to do our best and to say whatever our purpose is, each one of us is an individual. I mean, can you imagine if all our personalities and characters were the same? That's not when.
I mean,
Yeah.
like a millions of Lisas running around in the
I don't know if
world.
you had a million anxiety Jack ones, that would be pretty bad too.
I
but-
don't even think my husband can hardly handle
Right.
one anxious Lisa,
Right.
much less old world of us. But you know, really, our calling though, and I guess really, I feel like you know, there's like 10,000 points we can make on this. But our calling began before the foundation of the world.
Yes.
You know, if He called us from the beginning, if it was before the beginning of the world began, you and I had a purpose, even though we weren't here, even though our breath wasn't in our body and our body wasn't here on the earth and all of that at this time. We still, even before that, we had a calling. So when we were born into this world, we literally were born into the calling. We had to mature
Right.
into the calling and the purpose. And you can be, you know, I know a lot of nail techs, right? That because I'm in the business, and I know, look at this little baby. I know a lot of nail techs that are in the business that are really, really, really good at what they do, and they have a very large platform. And I do a lot of art, and I do in the right that it is, I do very good nail art. And I know this because people pay me for it, right? If I didn't do good nail art, it's not a brag. I know this because even when I lived in Florida and back in the day when I first started, nail art was not as huge of a thing. I could go into the store and I would have my nails done and somebody would say, "Oh, I see your nails. You must go to Lisa." And I would say, "Yeah, I do." And a lot of times I wouldn't even tell them that I am
Okay,
Lisa,
that's
right?
funny.
So because, well, first of all, I just thought it was funny, right? And so a lot of times my nail art preceded me,
Okay.
right? In the respect of their eyes because they knew my signature, my art, because I did certain types of art that most people didn't do back
Right.
in that day. Actually, nail art wasn't really that big, but I don't have a platform on it. It's not my calling to have a platform on nail art where I sit there for hours and do.
Okay. I understand what you're saying. Right.
So just because you're good at something doesn't mean that you can't do it and that you can't do it well, but it's not my platform, right? And so I think a lot of times that we just get confused of what God's really mandated for us, and we put a lot of our energy into one thing when God's really saying, "Hey, I need you right here." But we're busy being, you know, like a lot of times. First of all, I'm a mom. One of my callings is to be a good mom.
Right.
My calling is to be a good wife. I'm a wife. I'm also a servant of the Lord. So how do we decipher which one we do as a calling or as a ministry? Well, let me tell you, your family needs to be first in the ministry. Because if you lose your son or your daughter because you didn't take time, you failed your son or your daughter in many respects because you didn't take time to love them. And they can say, "My dad loved the church more than me." I think that would, now this is just my opinion. You can believe whatever you want, but I think that's sad.
Right. And I'll tell you, that's funny. We were talking beforehand of, you know, making sure that, you know, you place your family, you know, where it needs to be, because like you said, our platforms, if we're running here, there, and yonder to do that more than we are our family. And, you know, and that was one of the hardest things when I was actually, you know, working, and I would have to be at work at 3:00 in the morning. My son never knew me in the mornings. So I had to really make up for it because I was done by 1. So I was done before he got out of school. I make up on the other end. And you have to weigh the pros and the cons, because I was at the TV station for 20 years. You know, you have to be careful, like you said, to give, you know, the quality and quantity and perspective, but yet you still have to make a paycheck, you know. So
That's
you
right.
had to be and it was good because we could play off one another. Like my husband was there in the mornings, I was there in the afternoon. So that was favorable, you know, that I was blessed not to be a single mom or anything. So it made a big difference. But it's like you said, you have to remember, I would have never guessed elderly care to be a calling. Okay. And I had somebody say to me, "Well, you know, I could never do that." And my sister said, "Well, it's a good thing we have different callings, different, personalities. Because I took care of a quadriplegic for 3 years. I never knew I could do it. But obviously God, a long time ago, knew that I was going to be laid off, that I was going to go into a different profession and be able to do something like that.
Well, the thing too, and I guess the whole thing around it is don't get so caught up in what you think is the calling, because God may be having you somewhere else, but try to keep your calling and your purpose in as much perspective as you can. If you're a minister and you minister, that's great. We love that. We thrive in the ministry with
Right.
that. But we're called to maybe several things to be good at, but don't leave your family behind, because don't get so much caught up on the works. I guess that's really
Right,
just the
absolutely,
basic way. Don't get so caught up on the works that you forget the calling, whatever that calling might be in that moment. I can't tell anybody what their calling is. I just have to go with my heart when I'm in the middle of it,
Yes.
whatever it is. On that note, we're out of time, but you want the baby?
Sure.
It's so
sure.
cute.
Isn't that adorable?
They're so yummy.
That is very, very tasty.
Yes. Have a great day on purpose.